1885, Zambezi River Gorge, northern Rhodesia. The boom of the dynamite shook the cliffs, sending birds screaming into the red sky. The British miners cheered as rock split away, revealing the gleam of ore beneath. Captain Edmund Graves stood at the edge of the blasted gorge, arms folded, eyes on the water far below. The Zambezi twisted between cliffs like a black serpent. "Looks like the survey was right," he said. The missionary beside him, Reverend Lionel Chase, didn't answer. He was watching the river. Graves frowned. "You've been jumpy since we arrived. Something on your mind?" Chase's voice was low. "The Tonga men say this gorge belongs to Nyami, the river god. They believe he sleeps beneath the water and the rock, and that if disturbed—" He hesitated. "He takes payment." Graves smirked. "Gods don't frighten me, Reverend. Profit margins do." Below, the African laborers worked with picks and hammers, chipping at the newly exposed cliff face. A few stole uneasy glances at the water, where the current churned oddly, like something vast was moving just under the surface. That night, the gorge was quiet except for the hiss of the river. Graves was in his tent going over ledgers when a scream split the camp. He grabbed his revolver and burst outside. The moon hung low over the cliffs. Near the waterline, a man thrashed in the shallows, screaming in Tonga. Graves shouted for the guards, but before they reached him, the water bulged, then collapsed inward. The man was gone. The ripples spread slowly, almost lazily, across the river. By morning, half the African workers had refused to go near the cliff face. Graves replaced them with soldiers from his escort, but the remaining locals whispered as they worked. The word Nyami came again and again. Reverend Chase pulled Graves aside. "They say your blast yesterday cracked the rock that seals his chamber. If that's true—" Graves cut him off. "If that's true, we'll have the ore shipped to London before your god even wakes." 2 days later, the real trouble began. At dusk, the river rose without rain. It wasn't a flood, just a strange swell, as though something was pushing from beneath. The current turned cloudy, reddish-brown. That night, the camp was restless. Men heard knocking under the ground. Some swore they saw the river glint in the dark, as if an eye opened and closed beneath the surface. Graves ordered extra lamps set along the excavation site. "If anything moves, I want to see it." Hours later, he regretted those words. The lamplight caught a shadow along the water, long, coiling, impossibly thick. It moved without breaking the surface. Chase whispered, "It's him." The shadow turned toward the shore. The river erupted. Something massive struck the cliff face, sending rock and men tumbling into the water. Shouts turned to gurgling screams. The surface boiled, then went still. The lamps swayed in the sudden silence. Graves stood at the edge, revolver in hand, staring into the black current. For the first time since he'd arrived in Africa, he felt small. And then, rising from the gorge, came a sound like a low, rolling drumbeat, deep enough to rattle the bones. It wasn't thunder, it was breathing. The survivors slept in shifts, if at all. No one went near the water. Graves called a meeting at dawn. "We're closing the site. Pack what we can carry." A soldier interrupted. "Sir, you should see this." They followed him to the blasted cliff. The face of the rock had changed. Where ore veins had been, there was now smooth, pale stone, etched in patterns. Chase's voice was almost a whisper. Scales. From deep inside the cliff came a sound like stone grinding against stone. By midday, clouds rolled in. The wind picked up, driving the river into strange, spiraling currents. The locals were already leaving, abandoning tools and packs. Chase approached Graves. The Tonga say Nyami is restless. He will take back what you've stolen. Graves clenched his jaw. We're not running from a story. As if to answer him, a fissure split open under his boots. Warm water bubbled up, stinking of copper and rot. The ground trembled. The cliff face bowed outward. Something massive shifted beneath it, moving in slow, deliberate coils. The first soldier to panic fired into the rock. The echo was swallowed almost instantly, as if the gorge itself had eaten the sound. A deep rumble passed through the ground. Then the river surged, not over the banks, but upward, towering like a wall. "Run!" Chase shouted. Men scattered for the trail. Graves stayed rooted, revolver raised at the oncoming surge. "Hold your ground!" he yelled. Then the water hit. It wasn't a wave. It was alive. Something swept Graves off his feet, dragging him toward the water with impossible strength. He fired wildly, each shot muffled as if the air had turned to liquid. Chase lunged forward and grabbed Graves's arm. For a heartbeat, he had him. Then something tightened around Graves's torso and pulled. His last look was pure defiance. And then he was gone, yanked beneath the churning surface. The water went calm as glass. Chase staggered up the trail, alone. By the time he reached the ridge, the gorge below had vanished beneath a vast, unnatural flood. No tents, no scaffolds, no men. Just the slow, steady swell of the Zambezi, as if it were breathing. Weeks later, the British marked the gorge unstable and abandoned it. They never asked why only one man returned. The Tonga people still tell the story that in the year the white men blasted the gorge, Nyami rose, and the river took back what was his, and Reverend Chase tells it too. But he never speaks of the moment when he felt Graves's hand slip away, or how, sometimes at night, he wakes to the sound of deep, slow breathing just outside his tent.